for the Chicago Board of Elections. With me this morning are Election Board Chairman Langdon Neal and two representatives of the Chicago Lawyers Committee for Civil Rights Under the Law, Ruth Greenwood and Devin Rice. Today is National Voter Registration Day, and we are here for three purposes. First, to remind all of our eligible citizens to register to vote or take a moment to update their registration if they needed to make a name or address change. Second, to discuss the ways the election board is working to make it so easy for people to register to vote. Lastly, to emphasize our outreach with our younger citizens. With the presidential election cycle only months away, we are targeting our younger citizens. We plan to give new meaning to the term early and often. We know that if our citizens get involved in elections early in their lives, they will return consistently to participate throughout the rest of their lives. 4 years ago, the Chicago Election Board gathered the biggest voter focus group of its kind to examine ways we could improve voter services. I am pleased to report that many of the recommendations that emerged at that gathering at the UIC forum are now part of the Illinois Election Code. One of the most important changes is that Illinois now offers online voter registration. The Election Board and other Chicago civic groups lobbied for the 2013 law that led to launching this new statewide system. It's a system that's efficient and secure. Illinois is now among about 20 states that offers a system where citizens can go online with their driver's license or state ID and then register to vote for the first time or make a name or address change on their existing registration records. We have emphasized this system on our website. After its first year of operation, Chicago voters have accounted for nearly 31,000 or 45% of the 68,000 people in Illinois who have used the online registration system. Another recommendation that is now law is same-day registration. Starting with the March 15, 2016 primary, we will offer Election Day registration. This was another key recommendation from our 2011 focus group. They told us that we should allow citizens to register to vote or update their registrations on Election Day when they go to vote. The Election Board and other civic groups lobbied for this important change. Essentially, it makes voting a one-step process instead of requiring you to register to vote and then come back on a separate day to cast your ballot. The Election Board will provide this service during early voting at its early voting sites and on Election Day at each of the city's 2,069 polling places, starting with the March primary elections. This past month, the Chicago Election Board launched a mobile version of its website at m.chicagoelections.com. This new mobile version of the Chicago Election Board website is designed to be easy to use on smartphones and websites and tablets. m.chicagoelections.com focuses on the most critical voter services. This mobile platform is designed to help voters easily access both the online registration system as well as help a voter on Election Day to find the correct polling place. Closer to the election, this platform also will will allow voters to apply online for a vote-by-mail ballot. Beyond registration, we're engaging young people in another way. Since the year 2000, we've led the way in training and appointing high school students to serve in our precinct polling places on Election Day. In partnership with the MCFA Challenge, more than 1,700 students have worked in each citywide election. Last fall, the board partnered with the Chicago Lawyers Committee for Civil Rights Under the Law to recruit college and university students to serve. A new Chicago lawyer study shows that the Chicago Election Board leads the way nationally in the use of college student poll workers. Lastly, the board is pleased that another item from our focus group is now on the horizon. For many years, the Chicago Election Board and other civic groups have advocated that at least one semester of civics instruction be a requirement to graduate from high school. Recently, the General Assembly approved such a bill, and it was signed into law by Governor Rauner. That will do just that, starting with students who will enter high school in 2016. In February, even though we had stronger turnouts for the city election than any other big city, the different turnout rates between the age groups show exactly where we need to try to do better. Between 18 and 24-year-olds, the turnout rate was its lowest at 12.2%. 25 to 34-year-olds had a 17.7 turnout rate. 35 to 44-year-olds turned out at 27.4%. And those persons between the age of 45 and 54 had a 38% turnout rate. 55-year-olds to 64-year-olds turned out at 46.3%. And those over 65 had the highest turnout rate at 49.2%. Historically, registration and turnout rates have been lowest among our youngest voters. Part of that reflects young people are more likely to move between elections and not update their registrations. Another part of that low turnout is a feeling that voting doesn't matter. Our hope is that a combination of civics classes, making registration simpler and more accessible, and voting by mail will help us narrow that gap. We want more of our young people to be upstanders, not bystanders, and we're making it easier than ever for them to be engaged in the electoral process. Now, I'd like to turn over the podium to our representatives from Chicago Lawyers Committee for Civil Rights under the law.
Thank you, Commissioner. Hello, my name is Ruth Greenwood, and I run the Voting Rights Project at the Chicago Lawyers Committee.
Can you spell your name and last name, please?
Sure, Ruth, R-U-T-H, and Greenwood, green, the color, wood, like trees. And I'm not going to speak very much today. I'm going to hand it over to Devin Race. I just want to say initially that we have been so happy to work with the Board of Elections over the past few years to try to engage young people in elections. It is exactly as the Commissioner said, that the Chicago Board of Elections is leading the country in keeping young people involved in the election process. One of the best things that I have done for civic engagement was to hire Devin Race to run this fantastic program, so I'll let him tell you all about it.
Cool. Thanks, Ruth. Great. So, as Ruth mentioned, we work with the Chicago Lawyers Committee for Civil Rights, and our mission is to end discrimination in all its forms, housing, education, and other. And our project is the Voting Rights Project. So the program that we ran with the Board of Elections was part of implementing the Presidential Commission on Election Administration's recommendation. And that recommendation was to engage college students as poll workers. The thought there is that we need a way to get young people involved in politics. We need a way to expand the pool of people who are working in our elections. We need a way to find people who have the technological skills to work with modern voting technology. So that's what we did. So our program recruited over 1,500 students to work in the 2014 and 2015 elections. We did a review of all of the federally funded college student programs and every other program that had publicly available records. And our program recruited more students than any of those. So we were really delighted by the response that we got from Chicago students. There were a couple of results that we did by analyzing this data that we were particularly excited about that reveal some trends in youth civic engagement in our city. These trends specifically relate to our Spanish-speaking students and to community college students. So for community college students, over half of community college students chose to serve the city again in a second election, compared to only 30% of other students. So we were excited about this result because the population of the community colleges is traditionally lower income than from four-year colleges, and low income is associated by a lot of research with lower civic participation. So we were excited that this program was something that they were excited about, and in fact they turned out for and committed to at even higher rates than other students. The other result we were particularly excited about was the result for Spanish-speaking students. So the percentage of Spanish-speaking students who showed up after applying and the percentage who served in every single opportunity, which was 3 elections, the general, municipal, and runoff elections. So the percentage of Spanish-speaking students who did that was 9 points higher than that for other students in the city. We got some feedback from students about why they were engaged and what they liked about the program, and our Spanish-speaking students said that they were particularly excited to perform the necessary service of translating for voters who don't speak English as their first language. So the reason that this is a great result is because we already need bilingual workers to serve all of our citizens equally, and this shows that those workers not only perform an essential service, but are particularly engaged and committed. So all of these results also interestingly remain significant when you control for other factors like age, GPA, political party, neighborhood, that sort of thing. So these results really stand up to analysis. The last thing that we found in reviewing these results is that there was a surprising effect on election efficiency from having students in the polls. So we found that precincts with students in them helped transmit results at the end of the night up to 9 minutes faster, which amounts to a 32% improvement. So we think that this indicates the hypothesis that a lot of people have about college students is true, which is that college students, having grown up with technology, are comfortable with the sort of tasks that you need to do to run voting machines and touchscreen devices and that sort of thing. And the results that show the improvement in transmission time really point to that fact. And then finally, by strategically placing students, we were able to completely eliminate the need for backup standby poll workers in 3 city wards that have been often hard to staff with enough poll workers. So those precincts ran better than they did before. So we're also excited that we've done this in time for the 2016 elections. So based on this pilot program, the Board of Elections is going to be adopting a permanent college student program, and they're going to be updating and streamlining all of their systems to make that possible. So we're really excited about this result, and we're really excited that the Board of Elections is going to be continuing it going forward.
Should we take questions?
Well, there's also the findings that I listed are in a report that we're releasing today as well.
Buenos días. En celebración del Día Nacional de Registración de Votante, anunciamos aquí en la Junta Electoral de Chicago ciertas iniciativas dirigidas a comprometer a más jóvenes durante las elecciones del 2016. Con el ciclo de elección presidencial solamente dentro de unos meses, planeamos dar un nuevo significado al término temprano y a menudo. Queremos que signifique conseguir ciudadanos que se envuelvan tempranos en la elección de sus vidas y que regresen a participar en el resto de sus vidas. Con el ciclo de elección presidencial dentro de unos meses, nos estamos enfocando a los ciudadanos jóvenes. En particular, quisiéramos notar lo siguiente. La Junta Electoral y otros grupos cívicos de Chicago presionaron para un sistema de registración de votante en línea. En su primer año, los votantes de Chicago cuentan cerca de 31,000 o 45% de las 68,000 personas que usaron el sistema. También tenemos la registración en el día de elección. La Junta Electoral y otros grupos cívicos de Chicago presionaron por este cambio en la ley. La Junta Electoral proveerá este servicio en cada uno de los 2,069 colegios electorales de precintos, comenzando con las elecciones primarias en el marzo del 2016. Tenemos también una nueva versión móvil de la red de la Junta de Elecciones de Chicago y se llama m.chicagoelections.com y se enfoca en los servicios más críticos para ayudar a ciudadanos que usan teléfonos inteligentes que accesen el sistema de registración en línea y encontrar sus colegios electorales si necesitan usar registración en el día de elección. El sitio también permitirá a que apliquen en línea para votar por correo, la opción conocida anteriormente como votación ausente. Además, por 8 años, la Junta de Elecciones de Chicago ha sido el líder en la nación asignando a estudiantes de secundaria para servir como jueces de elecciones. En asociación con Mikva Challenge, más de 1,700 estudiantes han trabajado en cada elección en toda la ciudad. En el pasado otoño, la Junta se asoció con el Comité de Abogados de Chicago para Derechos Civiles bajo la ley, para reclutar estudiantes universitarios a que sirvan. Un nuevo estudio de este grupo encontró que la Junta de Elecciones de Chicago también es líder en la forma en que usa los trabajadores universitarios en precintos. Por muchos años, la Junta de Elecciones de Chicago y otros grupos cívicos propusieron que un semestre de instrucciones en cívica sea requerimiento para graduarse de escuela secundaria. Recientemente, el gobernador Rauner firmó una nueva legislación para este efecto. Históricamente, registración y resultados han sido lo más bajo por nuestros jóvenes votantes. Parte de eso se debe a que los jóvenes tienden a mudarse entre elecciones. Parte es porque sienten en que el votar no vale nada. Nuestra esperanza es que las clases de cívica hagan registración y votación más fácil y accesible para ayudarnos en hacer a que nuestros votantes jóvenes sean proactivos y no pasivos. Gracias.
Any questions?
I have a question for you guys. What are the
Sure.
requirements for a student to participate in this program? If you can just do that.
Yeah, sure.
And also if you can spell your first name and last name.
Sure. My first name is Devin, and my last name is Race. So the requirements for students to participate in the program is to be enrolled in any college or university in Chicago, to be a U.S. citizen, and by Illinois legislation to have a 3.0 out of 4 GPA or above. So other than that, those are the only requirements.
Now,
And there's similar requirements for high school students.
Right.
also
Yeah.
for high school.
Yeah,
Now,
yeah. So just, yeah.
this also apply for, do they have to be registered to vote? And
They don't have to be registered to vote, which is something that we think is really good about the Chicago program as opposed to in other states, because a lot of students, especially college students, aren't registered to vote yet or would prefer to vote in their home jurisdiction, but still want to do something to serve the city that they're living in. So we really support people being able to serve as poll workers without being registered voters in that city.
I'll talk a little bit about the benefits for students to participate in this program.
Sure, so the benefits to students are that they get to engage on a level of democracy that usually is hidden when you learn it in civics class. So there's a lot of laws and theories that go into democracy and the administration of elections, but when it comes down to it, every decision is made on the day about voting by election judges. So students get to see the full process of a bill becoming a law, becoming an action in the world. So that's what the election judge experience really gives them, is that on-the-ground, most detailed, final step of the democratic process.
Question back.
Yeah, I have a question. But first of all, I'd like to say, as far as students being involved in this process, I think it's absolutely fantastic. Because I myself was a poll watcher when I was 16 years old. And that was an experience that was a fantastic experience for me. That I still, in my mind, when I think about elections, go back to that experience. So it's a great idea. And obviously, I was 16 years old, so I was not old enough to vote, but I was still able to be part of that process. So I think it's great. The next thing I'd like to say is that I think making registration more convenient for voters is important. But as someone who's knocked on many doors and talked to many voters and non-voters in Chicago, I have to say that I've never ever heard anyone, when talking about why they don't vote, mention that getting registered to vote was a difficult experience. But what I've heard over and over and over again is that people have no confidence in the validity of the process. So I would like to, see what Maricel Hernandez has to say about that, and what your plans are for making the process of the Board of Elections, making elections more transparent, less opaque, and particularly those areas like, for instance, absentee ballots, where there's no transparency whatsoever right now.
Well, I'm going to turn
Thank
it
you.
over to Jim right now, who's the expert on our security and safety procedures.
Jim Allen, A-L-L-E-N, spokesman, Chicago Election Board. The entire election system is based on transparency. You have a poll list behind the judges of election that anybody can see, identifying who the voters are. If there's someone registering on election day, you can see who's registering. They have to call out the name, no less. Any poll watcher, as you know if you've been doing this since you were 16 years old, is able to see the application of every ballot filed by every voter. So you're able to see who voted, and you're able to see how many votes appear to have been cast in that precinct on the tabulator. At the end of the day, you're able to see the results of the election. The only thing you're not able to see are the choices that the individual made in the ballot.
But none
But
of this is- none of this is-
now you're talking about absentee ballot.
Yeah, none of this
You
is
get
true
to
with
see-
absentees.
No, this is all true with absentee. We also provide reports on a daily basis on who has applied for, who has received, who has returned their absentee ballot. They can watch the signature verification.
But they can't challenge it.
Right. The voter is not there to defend themselves. There's a little difference. You're comparing apples and oranges. So if you challenge it, who is there to speak for the voter? I'm not sure. You've
The
raised
voter
this
is
question.
notified by mail,
If you're-
though,
sir,
so they have an opportunity to.
Sir, I understand your opinion, but this is the way the law is. So we have not done anything to make we've done everything we can to make the process transparent.
Jim, can I jump in as well?
Yes.
So I've worked on election protection, election day efforts in Virginia, in New Hampshire, and in Illinois. And I just wanted to respond to one of the comments that you made earlier, which was that you don't believe that getting registered is a difficult step in the process for many voters. And from my experience, that's not the case.
No, I didn't say that.
My
I think
understanding.
it's great to make it easier.
Great. Yeah, so we know that the Election Assistance Commission nationally conducts surveys to ask people why they didn't vote, and consistently a big reason is that people didn't know how to register. That's usually something that happens in other states. In Illinois, we know that the process is much more inclusive than it is in many other states. Even before having online registration and election day registration, the Board of Elections commissioners go out to schools, they're out at L stops, they're getting out into the community to help people to register. So, and also the website is in multiple languages, even though by federal law they're required to only have a couple of languages. They've always had many more languages available to try to bring people into the process. I do think that in terms of bringing people in and being as transparent and open as possible, the Chicago Board of Elections is better than any I've seen in the country.
Thank you. Are there no other questions? Thank you.